Welcome to the City of San Antonio Department of Arts and Culture workshop on how to apply for our production costs grant through our Performing Arts Funding Guidelines. With you today is the Grants Management Team, Diana Hidalgo, Interim Assistant Director, Contract Officer Victoria Garcia, Management Analyst Amanda Montalvo, Contract Manager Karen Lagos, and I'm Ellen Gos-Hockaday, Contract Officer. I will also be your point of contact throughout this application process. In this workshop, you'll be provided with information about this grant, eligibility criteria, funding and restrictions, categories you may apply for, scoring, how to apply, the timeline, and where you can find answers should you have any questions. Additional information can be found at the sanantonio.gov/artgrants. Please write down your questions and we'll open the floor for a Q&A after the presentation. The goal of this grant is to assist applicants with the production of high-quality, innovative, and accessible performing arts programming in San Antonio. When you visit our website at sanantonio.gov/artsgrants, you'll find information and resources such as links to our guidelines, timeline for this grant, where to apply, and where to send questions. If you're looking for a venue location, there's a link to a variety of venues available all around the city. And that is actually on our website under the About Us tab. You'll be able to find information about the venues. Be sure to also review the request for applications for this grant. Basic eligibility requires that applicants must reside within San Antonio city limits or Bexar County. Applicants will be required to upload some proof of address in the intent to apply. Examples include a utility bill, bank statement, rental agreement, ID, etc. You must be at least 18 years of age and demonstrate your experience as a professional artist. Professional artists must have at least 3 years of relevant work experience or have received specialized training in their artistic field, such as a degree or certification. They must also derive a portion of individual earned income from their artistic practice or areas related to their field, or demonstrate a clear investment of time and resources into the creation of new works. Lastly, they will need to have a professional portfolio that includes published or publicly displayed works. In addition to being a professional artist, applicants must also be performing artists in the field of music, dance, theater, or literary performance for an audience. Applicants must show that they have been actively performing in the city of San Antonio during each of the last 3 years and be in good standing with the City of San Antonio contracts and policies as applicable. In order to qualify for this grant, applicants must already have an event planned to be eligible for funding. You will be asked to provide the name, date, location, and a description of the event. Events must be held within the city limits of San Antonio and must be open and accessible to the public. And at least 70% of the artistic performers must be Bexar County residents. Production back-of-house labor fees shall be paid at established union labor rates, regardless of whether the venue is a union house or the personnel are union members. The city will not pay more or less than the established union labor rates. You may use funds to cover city-required insurance for the event. Please note that it is prohibited to solicit additional funding from the city for your event. The number of grants to be awarded will depend on the amount of funding available. Awards are based on a competitive score and the amount of funding available. Artists will receive a minimum range of $2,500, not to exceed a maximum of $10,000. Grantees will receive 75% of their total award upon completion and approval of the interim report. They will receive the remaining 25% upon completion of the event and submission and approval of the final report. An open call for this grant is held once every 2 years. This contract begins on October 1, 2022, and ends on September 30, 2023. Performances must be completed in San Antonio within the 12-month period. Please keep in mind that applicants may only operate one contract per contract period, so one application per artist. Take a moment to review this list. These are restrictions for which funding cannot be used. Fundraising, programs that are therapeutic or recreational, political purposes, or productions that include explicit content. Funding may also not be used to support debt reduction efforts, religious purposes, official fiesta events, private events, or events held in facilities whose main purpose of source of revenue is for food and or beverage. This list is also included in the request for applications on the department's webpage at sanantonio.gov/artgrants. So for the evaluation, you can score up to 30 points for experience. Applicants will provide work samples based on 3 past events that they have listed in the application. Work samples will be evaluated based on history of past successful, artistically excellent, relevant, and/or innovative performances. Efforts to achieve broad and diverse participation across San Antonio community, including areas that are economically challenged and/or with a higher concentration of persons of color. Next, you can score up to 40 points for artistic excellence and innovative programming. These evaluations are based on the extent to which the event is artistically excellent, innovative, or relevant, and/or enriches San Antonio's culture. Qualification of organizers, staff, and artists supporting the event implementation. Proposed efforts to promote the performance event and achieve broad and diverse participation across San Antonio community, including areas that are economically challenged and/or with a higher concentration of persons of color. Expected number and diversity of attendees, and accessibility of proposed performing arts events. Lastly, you can score up to 30 points for capability, and this includes when an applicant demonstrates they can properly manage grant funding and administer a program event effectively, the applicant's timeline is achievable, realistic budget including diverse revenue and sponsorship resources, event already has a venue on hold with fee quotes, and the applicant demonstrates the event is an appropriate use of this venue. You can also score up to 20 additional bonus preference points for the following categories. These include racial and ethnic communities of color, applicants who identify as Latinx, African American, Native American, and/or Asian American. Also, applicants who identify as women, LGBTQIA+, and/or veterans. Be sure to take some time to read the request for applications posted to our website at sanantonio.gov arts grants for just some additional details. The next several slides walk you through the process of the application and how to access our online grant portal, sanantonio.gosmart.org. This is a two-step process. Step 1, you'll complete an intent to apply to determine basic eligibility. The deadline is May 20th, 2022. Staff will review your intent to apply, and if eligible for the grant, you will be notified to proceed to step 2, which is the application, and this is where you will tell us about your event. Keep in mind that the application closes on June 10th. So this is our online grant portal, sanantonio.gosmart.org. If you've applied before, you'll have a logon already, so you can just go to the top left. If you're new to the site, scroll down to the bottom left and click the blue link that says click here to create a new profile. That will take you to this screen. Click the blue button that says yes, I agree at the bottom left. This screen will open where you will create a profile. Click the button at the top left for an individual. Here it's asking for your primary contact information. Notice up at the top right, there's a little phrase tech tips. If you have any technical issue with the system, click on that and a screen will open where you can research questions and answers about the system. And this is just what it looks like. If you scroll down, you'll see links to tutorials about how to use the system. And these are just some examples of links to the tutorials. And this is very helpful, especially if you are working late at night and you need some immediate assistance. When you're logged on, click the gray tab at the top titled Current Programs and Applications. At this point, you'll be able to see our list of grants. Scroll down the list until you see the 2022-2023 Production Cost Grant for Individual Artists. You'll see a reminder about the submission deadlines. Click the blue link, Start Intent to Apply. And just as a reminder, applicants are prohibited from communicating with city officials and employees regarding the application until the grant is awarded. So this language is included before you begin the intent to apply. Take some time to review all of the questions carefully. You'll notice the first couple questions ask you to verify if you are a professional performing artist and are 18 years of age or older. You'll notice that some of these questions have a blue question mark underneath, and when you click on them, an information box will appear with more information to clarify the question or give you examples of some answers. Be sure to select the blue button to save your work as you go through the intent to apply. And here you can check one or more of the following categories under bonus preference points, if applicable. Be sure to download the contracts disclosure form to fill out and upload into GoSmart. We have two different versions for you to download. You can either download a writable PDF or a printable version, whichever one works for you. And again, just as a reminder, please be sure to read all of the questions carefully and save your work. One thing I do want to mention, when you are providing your list of past performances, it is helpful to go ahead and list the venues that you have used in the past and provide the dates that you held those performances. Also, just a quick note, at the bottom, right here where this question asks to list your proposed event, be sure to also include the date and the venue, the location for your event. That is required. After that, you can click submit and you're done with step 1 of the intent to apply. And again, be sure to make sure that you have everything that you need in the intent to apply. As soon as you submit, it becomes a read-only page. Once that's complete, staff will review your eligibility and the intent to apply, and if approved, you will be notified to proceed to step 2, where the application will be open for you to access. The deadline to submit the application is no later than 5 p.m. June 10th. Log back onto the sanantonio.gosmart.org system and click the tab at the top, Current Programs and Applications. Scroll back down to the bottom of the page to find the application. Your intent to apply will show approved. Next to that, click on the blue link to start and begin part 2 of the application. And just keep in mind that my screen doesn't show intent to apply approved because I've created a test applicant that already has their intent to apply approved. Up at the top left, you'll see the various sections of the application. You can go back and forth between any of these sections to answer questions in any order, but just remember to click on the blue Save button at the bottom of the screen so you don't lose your work. So here you will pick 3 performances that you have done in the past 3 years and use the text boxes to respond to the following questions. Next, you're going to provide work samples of the past 3 performances that you previously described, and you have 2 options for submitting evidence. Remember that this grant is scored competitively, so if you don't provide any work samples, you may receive a lower score and may not receive funding. And here is, if you have a profile to use for the San Antonio Artist Registry, if you already have that, you can use this text box to in place of uploading to the media bank. We'll get into that a little bit later. Note the number of performances that you are requesting and describe the proposed events. Describe your marketing plans, target audience, and accessibility to the event using these text boxes. Next, you're going to upload your proposal from the venue for back of house fees, along with a letter of support that confirms your event dates. You'll also provide a timeline in chronological order for your events, including major milestones, and be sure to use the items that are listed above this question. So it includes the date of the event, rehearsal dates, etc. You're also going to list the overall budget for your event. Be sure to include the following expenses referenced above and detail all other sources of funds such as sponsorships. Enter the average production cost per performance being requested under this grant and list the total dollar amount that you are requesting under this grant. Remember that the funding range you can apply for is $2,500 to $10,000. Please keep in mind that if you are awarded a grant, you may be required to obtain insurance coverage at the time you enter a contract with the city. And we've also included this chart to show you the type of insurance coverages that would be required and their amounts. And as we mentioned earlier, there are two ways for you to submit your work samples. If you already have a profile to the San Antonio Artist Registry, you may enter a link into the provided text box in the GoSmart application. Be sure that your profile contains the work samples based on the past events you described earlier in the application. If you do not have a profile in the San Antonio Artist Registry, please follow these instructions for submitting media into the GoSmart system. Please be sure to sort your media files so that the past performances are grouped together first, and all key personnel artistic achievement files are grouped together second. This will be extremely helpful for the panelists as they review your work samples. And of course, there's more helpful instructions on file size and how many you can attach. If you forget to answer any questions, you'll see this page that lists which ones and a link to go straight to them. You won't be able to submit your application until all required questions are answered. When complete, click the blue Submit button at the end of the application. After you have answered all of the required questions, you will be able to submit your work. Please note that once you submit, you will not be able to go back into the intent to apply to make changes, or I should say the application. Once you submit, you'll get a message that your application was received and is under review. Staff will review your submission and notify you of the status and if there are any questions. Take a minute to review the timeline. The intent to apply is due by no later than May 20th, 2022 at 5 p.m. On May 23rd, we will open up part 2 of the application, and this will be due no later than June 10th at 5 p.m. Once the application closes, selected panelists will evaluate and score the applications. Staff will notify you in August. The Arts Funding Committee and San Antonio Arts Commission will meet to discuss approval of funding recommendations. During September, we will hold a mandatory contract workshop for grantees. And of course, we will notify all grantees with the exact dates and times. Lastly, contracting begins on October 1, 2022. And again, we will keep you informed if there are any other updates. So if you have any questions regarding this grant, you can contact me at 210-207-6964 or send an email at artsfunding@sanantonio.gov. Be sure to also view the request for applications at sanantonio.gov/artgrants and apply at sanantonio.gosmart.org. We'll make this workshop available on our website following the session. And thank you. We will open the floor for questions now. Raise your hand in the chat box or send a message to our host, Amanda Montalvo.
Righty. Ellen, I do have a question.
Sure.
Question is, can you submit a project through fiscal sponsorship?
So no, the contract needs to be handled by the applicant. It needs to go, all aspects of the contract are going to be handled by the applicant, not the fiscal sponsor. And the applicant needs to be the artist. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I am not seeing any other questions in the chat, Ellen.
Okay.
Hold on. Do you have a question, Violetta?
Well, you might think of some questions later on once you get acquainted with the application. And we are building an FAQ, so if you do have any additional questions, we will make that available as well. And of course, you can email me or call me if any questions come up later on.
Violetta does have a question, but she is trying to unmute herself to ask the question.
Go ahead. You can go ahead and unmute her.
Already, you are unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I do have a question. So I read that for this grant, you need to have like already an event plan, right?
I'm sorry,
Hello?
I'm actually having a bit of a hard time hearing you. It seems to be going in and out.
Okay. Can you hear me better now? No? No.
It's still I want to make sure I'm clear. It's still a little quiet.
Okay. Better? No?
Yes, thank you.
A little bit. Okay. Yeah, so I have a question. So I think I read that to apply, you need to already have like an event set, like maybe separate the theater or the venue or something like that. Am I correct?
That is correct. So we will ask you to provide the name of your event, the location, and the dates. So that is something, because in the part 2 of the application, we will be asking some deeper questions about that event.
And that event has to, like, everything has to be like in my name. It cannot be part of a bigger thing. Like if it's a festival and they're gonna open up maybe another date for my project, can something like that be done or not?
Correct. So this does need to be your performance.
Uh-huh.
It will need to be something that is arranged in something that you were putting together, that you were producing.
Okay, but it has to be like, it can be part of something bigger, even if it's my performance one day, but it's part of something like a 3-day festival or 4-day festival. Hello?
I'm here. Karen, do you want to jump in on this real quick?
Hi, this is Karen Lugos, the contract manager for the Department of Arts and Culture. And the event or the performance that you are applying for this grant would need to be one that you are planning yourself and that you have costs associated with the back of house labor union rates, or you're hiring a light tech, a sound tech, or you're renting equipment for an event that you yourself are producing and performing. So if you're a part of another festival, that festival will be covering those costs themselves. They have organizers that cover all of those, so that would be completely different.
Okay. All right. And then my last question will be if, because I did apply for the individual artists, so if can I apply for both of us, or because I applied to the other one, I cannot apply for this one?
You can apply for this one as long as, let's say, as long as you are not using the same expenses for this other grant. So you can apply for both of these grants, but we would need to have, the expenses would need to be separate. And I would think about, if you have, it really should be, if you have another event planned, I think that would be that might be easier. But we definitely just want to make sure that if you are applying for both grants, that those expenditures are kept separately.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be a different project, or it can be the same project, but each of them have to cover different things.
Do you want me to handle that, Ellen?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay. So yes, it can be the same project. And when you enter the information about the planned event for this back of house expenses, then you're utilizing the estimated event and timeline that you have entered into the individual artist grant if you're using the same project, okay?
Yes.
So that's where you will obtain that information. Just be aware that eventually we're going to ask you to upload an agreement that you would have made with the venue that you're asking us to help you with those fees that are back of house expenses.
Okay.
So,
okay.
You know, if you've got an intent, a letter of intent with a venue, that doesn't have to, you don't have to have an actual contract right now, but you should have a letter of intent from the venue.
Okay.
We see that you already have a venue secured and that the expenses that you're listing in this grant application is applicable to what they would be charging you for those back of house expenses.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yes, yes, that makes sense for sure. And that will be the only requisite to prove that about the venue, right?
Well, as Ellen was saying, the letter of intent would be required. And Ellen was saying that if you are applying for this grant and you want to use a different project that you're not using in the individual artist grant, then you can upload a contract for that. You know, a copy of a contract that would outline the expenses and the detail.
Okay. All right. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You may have some more questions for Ellen after you have a chance to get into the application and take a look at those questions a little closer.
Amanda, do you know if we have any other questions?
I am not seeing any other questions in the chat.
Okay. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we will be building in this FAQ. So we will have that as a reference for you, along with a recording of this session. And of course, Also, be sure to check out our website to view the request for applications and the performing arts funding guidelines. And with that, if we don't have any other questions, then we can go ahead and close. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. And please let us know, please reach out if you have any questions.